Hello everybody! I am going to be doing a tier list today of the Star Trek movies of the next generation. And the way tier lists work, S, like above that category, the S is good, that's high quality, and the F tier is low quality, not good, garbage. So that's the way I'm doing the ranking for this video, and I'll get talking about the films, and then we'll see where they stand on ranking. Star Trek Generations. Okay. The first one I'd like to talk about is Star Trek Generations, which has Picard and his team landing on a planet, and basically they're trying to stop this bad guy who was in the past and the present kind of deal, and William Shatner's in it, and so is some of the original cast, including Chekhov and Scotty. They're both in the beginning of the film, and Shatner has a little bit of a part in this film. In fact, he gets killed off in this film. And one thing I can say is this film really did feel like a Star Trek Next Generation movie, because I'd been watching the show for a good while, and this really felt like, you know, a good continuation. I really enjoyed the fact that they gave Data a emotion chip kind of thing, because he's been searching out a way to be human since like the series started, basically, and I really found that pretty cool that they continued on with that aspect, and the whole cast just really felt it felt well written. It felt like it was really a continuation from the TV show. And when Shatner got killed off in this film, his Kirk character and stuff dying and stuff, I found that interesting route to go. But I really thought it was well done. Gave him kind of a heroic ending, and I thought that Picard and Kirk communicating was pretty awesome to see. I really like this film. I really enjoyed this film. To Star Trek First Contact, which I gotta say, this film felt very different. The characters, just in general, everybody felt very different in the way they're written, in the way they acted. Like Picard, for example, his whole deal was destroying the Borg. And don't get me wrong, I do understand that in the original series, but later in the series, there's an episode that really kind of changes the Borg and changes Picard's mind on the Borg a bit, where he finds this one Borg that's willing to be addressed as like a human, and they kind of see him over time as they interact with this Borg person, that he has some good qualities, and he's a nice guy, you know, and he spreads that on to his Borgs, and then they all start developing a personality and stuff like that. And instead, I feel like in this film, they decided to backstep what they did in the series and make all the Borgs like even more brutal. And that's cool. It's a cool direction to go. But as far as continuations go, it's kind of a step backwards in my opinion, because it seems like the Borgs were kind of starting to evolve a bit. Then conquering. It was more about them kind of acting human as well by the end of the Next Gen series. But in this First Contact movie, it feels like, okay, now they're just back to being the Borg again. And Picard's just like, destroy them all. And I do think that the process of taking over the ship was interesting. I do feel like some of the characters really shifted, and I'm just like, yeah, I can go with this, but it's like, what? Like, for example, Beverly Crusher, she always was a redhead in the show, from what I've seen. Up to the first movie, Generations. She was a redhead. And all of a sudden she's a blonde now. Okay, I can go with that, that's fine. And also Geordi, when did he not need the visor anymore? That's my question. When did that get switched over? Because up to the Generations movie, he'd had the visor, as far as I'm aware, up to that point. And in this movie, he doesn't have the visor, but the thing that they do with his eyes is pretty dope. I gotta say I accept that pretty quick, but I was like, what? That's a big shift. And also, what they do with Data's face by the end of it, I'm just like, oh geez, they wrecked him in this. But I did find the fact that Data and one of the Borg women, well actually the leader, who's a woman of the Borg, she and Data seem to be having this fling going on, like this strong fling, and I'm just like, oh shit, good for Data, I guess. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, you know, direction to go. And I thought the film was okay. I feel like the First Contact is kind of like they time traveled back to when the First Contact was going to happen at this place, and then they knew like the history of it, and that was kind of cool. And the guy who was going to do that didn't necessarily want the fame, which is interesting direction to go with it. I really thought that the direction they went with this movie was very entertaining, very interesting, but at the same time, it didn't necessarily feel like the show. It felt like it kind of wanted to go with its own direction, and felt kind of like a parallel universe on some levels, because like all of a sudden these characters have changed dramatically, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can go with this. But yeah, I give this a decent rank. It's an enjoyable film, but it's definitely a little bit odd. Okay, I just got done watching Star Trek Insurrection, and I gotta say, this film is kind of bland. It's really just not really that notable of a movie. It's hard to remember most of the plot. When it comes to the storyline, I guess Picard kind of has an option to stay in an area where people tend to live very, very long lives. Maybe live well past their means. By the end of the movie, he doesn't choose to, and there's bad guys, and they did something weird with Counselor Troy. In the series, she got with Worf. Well, that seems to be erased in this movie, and now she's with now she's with Picard's number one. Dang it, I can't remember his name. Struggle with his name. The counselor gets with Riker, who was a prior love interest, but by the end of the series, like the TV series, she ends up with Worf, and there's a build up to that, and Riker kind of deals with that. I think by the end, I think Han Solo accepts that. But in this movie, it's like it reversed that and just like deleted the whole Worf and counselor relationship completely. So it's like, it's weird. It's a little weird. I mean, I root for it, but it's weird. That's all I can say. And that's the most notable thing, is the weird love interest direction of the film. The rest of the film is not really that noticeable. It's okay. Alright, I got done really watching Star Trek Nemesis. I really wasn't interested in the plot, and basically it was like a younger version of Picard. So, like he's going against a version of that, and Data sacrifices himself. That's part of the story. And basically, it revamps the storyline with, alright, the movie wasn't really anything great. It's one of those movies that you probably have in the background when you're watching something. It doesn't really stick with you. And, it was a hard watch. I don't think I'd really recommend the movie to any Star Trek fan. I just gotta say, I saw a steady downward decrease in the movies from Generations to the Nemesis film that I've seen. It's like a steady drop. I thought in reflection, I thought that the film was, well, the films, they didn't quite capture what I wanted them to capture. And I like Star Trek Next Generation series. It went out on a high note, and it was a very enjoyable TV series when it started and when it ended. I thought it was pretty solid all the way through for the most part. Even the first season. And the movies, I just saw this like decrease where it's like Generations was, well, it was good. It got the main point across with what it was trying to say, and it felt like a good continuation movie. But there was a drastic turn between that and First Contact. And First Contact kind of set the tone in outfits that they'd be wearing. And in my opinion, the movie outfits for the next 3 films of the Star Trek movie saga for Next Generation was lackluster. You know, it wasn't really enjoyable. And I feel like the outfits were kind of dulled down. It was less fun to look at. And with that, I feel like that's the disappointing aspect of where the Star Trek Next Generation films went. They went a steady decrease. And I've shown that in this video with the ranking, and you know, it's all up to interpretation, but that's really what I got from it. Alright, so I wanted to end this video by saying that I basically will be doing more with some Star Trek tier ranking stuff, but I'm gonna go only as far as probably Voyager. So there'll be a video of a tier rank of the original series and the original series movies, and then Deep Space Nine, and then probably one on Voyager. I don't know if any of them will be in that order that I listed, but yeah, this is kind of going to be a little saga that I do, mostly because I've been getting into Star Trek lately, so there's that too.